All right, we're looking good, mate.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Happy?
Yeah, I'm ready, mate. Ready to rock and roll.
What's your day? What have you been up to today, bud?
Like supposed to have a really kind of academic productive day, which was kind of get as much kind of caught up with my work as I could have done. Love to say it went as productive as I would like it to. However, there's a lot of distractions from working from home, as I imagine everyone else is suffering with at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely trying to find the right level of production versus the fact of watching running videos from like the 1980s, which is kind of my more kind of love towards running rather than marking papers. I think that's the more kind of pressing issue that we have at the moment.
Keep getting sidetracked, basically.
Pretty much. And I'm sure kind of everyone who's kind of tuning in, who will be in a second, who's working from home will relate to that, is the fact that the distractions are quite high at the moment.
Yeah, because working from home, if you're not used to it, you're going to have them distractions, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. What was that? Sorry, mate.
Too comfortable.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. What I need is a proper setup from home. However, I don't know. I'll turn it around now. I don't know if you can see that. That's my current table at the moment. There's no way I'm getting anything productive done on there at the moment. So currently I spend all my time on my couch sitting here and trying to get as much work done. But as you know, the distractions are massive.
Need a little time sat out on that table, Tom, so you can get some work done, bud.
Definitely.
Cheeky time.
Definitely. Yeah. How's your day been, mate?
Hey, good, man. Productive. I've been up and at it this morning. I was up early doing a class with my group. So I was there at 7 a.m. Then got ready for the builder coming round. And I've been working on my garage, which I'm converting into a studio.
I've seen, honestly, man, anyone who kind of wants to see a conversion going on at the moment, you should go check Ben's Instagram out. Honestly, it's he's making the world's state-of-the-art gym from home stroke office.
Not quite, but I'm making my space, somewhere I can do my thing from.
Trust me, man. I'm refreshing all the time on Instagram, waiting for the uploads. I can't wait.
In between running videos.
Yeah, yeah, you know it.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Now, hopefully, it's going to be somewhere where I can do this kind of thing from, and just my own classes, things like that. So just my own space, really. No doubt, one of my kids will tear through here in a minute, and just to kind of get my own space. All right, Tom. Well, a few people are coming in today. We promised them a bit of a running talk, bit of a conversation. You are the master running coach, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Tom. Who you are, where you're from.
First of all, Ben, cheers for having us on. Master is a strong term of running. I've obviously got an MSc in sports coaching, but a master of running, I don't think anybody's a master of coaching running just about yet, but I do know me field pretty well. So cheers for that. So kind of to fill you in for anybody's watching on kind of my journey in terms of how I kind of got into coaching, I'll kind of sum that up in hopefully one thing that won't take less than kind of 10 minutes. We'll kind of push through. We were joking about that before the call started. But so my journey started when I was kind of 14. I got into athletics itself, and I was like track and field was my domain. And that's how I kind of started in terms of like 400, 800 and 1500 meter running. And like, I was hooked from day one, like loved the sport. Like I wasn't technically gifted at athletics, but I just was very much determined in the fact that like, this is the sport I want to do. Yeah. And I like really enjoy doing it. So I was like, that's what and I like the fact of the idea of how hard you train almost produces results, if that makes sense. And that was kind of like the fact of, because this will make me sound like a total complete person who kind of never had any talent, but I'd practiced for ages at football, kicking the ball against like the wall, trying to improve. And then like every time playing like Sunday league football and just getting absolutely ruined whenever I'd play. Whereas like running was one of those things that I knew if I trained and worked hard, I could see progression. And then that led to me being like quite a good runner. Like I was county champion in cross country in Cumbria. And ran for Cumbria for 800 meters.
What age were you there, Tom?
What was that, sorry?
What kind of age were you there?
That was bridging between like 16 to 18.
That's quite a good age. That's quite a good age to have a head on you where you're doing things like that. Because the things I was doing at that age, Tom, there was nothing to do with running. Let me tell you. Maybe,
no, I think it's
a bit, but nothing productive like that.
No, definitely. I think it's just because I wasn't really into kind of like partying or kind of like the major kind of social side. Yeah, obviously I had a good group of mates around me, but I was very much in that bubble of athletics from a very early start.
Yeah.
I had like a lot of close friends who were involved in that athletics bubble. So like, put it this way, like our wild parties would be like going around to each other's houses and playing like FIFA until about 11. But then next day we'd be out tonking a 12-mile run on a Sunday. Whereas like the majority of the lads who I went to school with would be out until 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, boozing, and then not up till like 3 o'clock the next day. So I think it's because I had that like kosher environment around me where just people wanted to do that. And that was kind of the profession that I was in. Then I went to uni when I was 18, went to St. Mary's in London, which was at the time in kind of 2012, 2011, like the place to be in the UK for kind of running wise.
So what was that like coming from Cumbria, a little town? You're from Wigton, are you?
No, Dalston, me.
Dalston?
Yeah.
Boy.
Aye, tell me about it.
So, coming from Dalston in Cumbria, going all the way down to St. Mary's in London, what was that like?
A massive culture shock with the fact of just the way everything was done. You've got to remember that, like, I always relate things to running. So, like, I'd go for a run on a Sunday and not see anybody the entire run because it was kind of, that's the way it is. Everything's massively spread out to the point where I remember going for a run when I was first down there, like, not looking to cross a road and being nearly knocked over by several cars because I just wasn't used to the fact of not having traffic. So when I'd go running with the boys, I was almost like running at the back because it was like, okay, if Tom's at the back, then he's safe, then we're fine. Yeah. And that, but that ended quite badly. I got a stress fracture in my foot, which was kind of, I didn't really know how to deal with that. And that was my first kind of major injury. And that kept me out for the best part of 3 months.
Yeah.
And at that point, because you're in an environment where everyone's a runner around you in terms of that kind of environment, when you're injured, it's not a great place to be because everyone's coming in all the time and being like, oh, I've smashed this session. This run's been amazing. And you're like, oh, I'm injured. I can't do anything. So, and what else didn't help with that was the fact I originally went to uni and studied sports science and coaching. But the course was very much sports science based and probably 5% coaching. And I just wasn't ready. Like, I didn't understand. I was going into lectures and they were talking about like the human anatomy and the way it deals with certain adaptations to colds, etc. And I was there just sitting there being like, okay, don't understand any of this. Yep, gone right over the head. So I dropped out and ended up quitting running altogether for about 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And just properly, I effectively, to kind of talk what we were talking about before, I effectively had my 18-year-old life at 22, 23. So I was like properly boozing constantly. I was still kind of running 3 or 4 days a week just to kind of, because I enjoyed it, but there was no kind of formal sessions. And then
just running, just putting your shoes on and running, really.
Yeah, just running for pure pleasure. So like I'd go out, run 3 or 4 miles a day, but there was no form of like, which we'll talk about later on, there was no form of like structure of running. There was no like, on this Monday, I'm going to do this. Tuesday, I'm going to do this. It was very much just, oh, it's nice outside. I'll put my shoes on, go out, plod some miles. That'll be great.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. And if anything, it gave me a chance to have a bit of a break as well from it because I'd been involved in competitive athletics from the age of like 14 to kind of 18, 19, constantly for 5-6 years. And you've got to remember, like, the monotony of training constantly kind of gets on your back.
Yeah.
So it was nice to kind of have that break and then just to go out and enjoy running just for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And then I had to have a job in that time. So I worked at Centre Parks as an outdoor instructor. So taught like segways, quad bikes, paintballing, which was a brilliant job. Like that was probably, that was like the highlight job. It was the fact of that job didn't just teach me how to like enjoy work, but it also taught me the fact of like how to organize myself, like how to look after myself, how to kind of present myself in a more academic way rather than before then I was quite a quiet kid.
Yeah.
was quite shy. That taught me how to kind of like come out and be kind of brave. And then I really kind of wanted to go back to uni because I always kind of wanted to be a coach. That was the dream. So I applied for Liverpool John Moores in their sports coaching course. This was in 2015.
Right.
They took me on. And at that time as well, I was kind of getting roughly back into running. And then there was a coach in Liverpool who looked after me, a guy called Adrian Webb, who I was down there, who coaches. I don't know if how many people kind of are roughly aware of track and field at the moment, but he coaches Jamie Webb, the guy. He ran 144 yesterday and broke last week and broke Sebco's indoor record for the 800, along with another lad. So that was like, to be trained by his dad was great. And that kind of got me back into the running world, and I kind of really kind of found my passion for running again. But I also found my passion for the education side. So in terms of becoming a sports coach, that was great. So I did my degree in sports coaching, which took me from 2016 to 2019. And I also did my England athletics coaching in athletics alongside that. And then coming from there, went on and did my master's in sports coaching. While doing my master's, I also formed the group that you were a part of as well. So I've got 6 athletes who I work with independently at the moment, and they get obviously tailored plans weekly. You were obviously a part of that, and you can kind of speak what it's like now from what it's like being coached by me. Try not to slate.
Hard, Tom. It's hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's good though. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, I never had a coach in my life in athletics, at least. You know, I've had a few business coaches, things like that, but I've never had a coach like that before in my life, and had that accountability. That's what I loved about it most, which is what my clients love most from me as well. Is the accountability in it. It's making sure you're getting the job done. And, that was what I love most, is reporting back to you. You know, say, "Oh, I did it, Tom. You know, did me fast."
Exactly, and like, I'm sure we'll touch on this more later, but it's the fact that like anybody who's kind of listening to our kind of like talk now, is the fact that my recommendation would be go and seek out a coach. If you want to generally improve at a sport, go and seek out a coach, but don't just jump into somebody who you think will help you. Read about that coach, talk to people, learn how they operate, because you didn't just come to me, did you? You were chatting to Mark Emerson, an athlete who I work with.
I've watched him for a long time, Tom.
Yeah, and you were like,
"What's?"
Yeah, and you were like, "What's Tom like?" And obviously, Mark filled you in, and you did your research on me, and like, obviously, it didn't work out between us because obviously you had quite a lot on. But then again, that comes from my point of view of I'm quite time consuming as a coach. Like I want it to be a full commitment sort of thing.
Which is fair enough. And you know what? Yeah. But when you dropped that message and said, "Look, if you can't do my plan, then it's maybe not for you," I give it a go. I give it another few weeks, and I was hitting them targets.
Yeah.
Just everything else that was going on around me, it was just too much. It was all too much. And
Exactly. And the fact is that, like, I think even when it comes down to a breakdown of a relationship between a coach and an athlete, there should never really be bad blood there between each other. Like, it should just be the fact that it didn't work. It's not a big deal. It's just one of those that we tried it, and the relationship
I'm
with
not
the
saying
coach.
it didn't work, to be honest with you, Tom. You know, I took a lot away from that, and I did. I'm not saying I'd never come back. Just at the minute, you know my situation at the minute, Tom. It's balls.
I can't imagine. I don't know how you get anything done all day.
I get up early, Tom. I get up at 4.
Exactly.
Get up and get it done, mate. I get stuff done all day.
Exactly. So to kind of carry on my story, and I said I'd keep it under 10 minutes. I think we're about 9.5 now. But I left uni, and originally I was going to start progressing my own coaching business in terms of athletics and trying to recruit more athletes. But at the same time, while I was doing my master's, I really fell into the love of teaching.
Yeah.
And teaching in terms of actual sport. So I started applying for jobs as a lecturer in sport at college level. So teaching BTEC sport and higher education sport. So and I ended up landing a job in Leicester, where I currently am now, at North Warwickshire and South Leicestershire College, teaching BTEC and HND sport. And that's how we are here now. So
how are you finding it?
Yeah, it's good. It's difficult. There's a lot of tough days, but then you get the same pleasure as you do with coaching, in the fact that you still get that thing that all coaches get, that when you see something click with somebody, you get that same buzz. And I imagine you get it in your coaching practice as well.
Yeah. Nothing
When
better.
you see something click with somebody,
yeah.
you can't really describe it. And I don't think I ever could, but it's the fact of when you see it work with somebody, it's just magical. It's really good.
I was having a conversation with one of my guys. I mean, you came into my group last week, I think it was, and you gave a bit of a talk privately for my Alpha Plan members, and it was really appreciate that, and we took a lot away from it. And I think you met Chris, didn't you? And me and Chris having a conversation the other week, and he was saying like he'd achieved this, he'd achieved that, and I was saying like, listen, it's as much as a buzz for me as it is for you, and you mean it, don't you? 100%. You have that, you go through that same buzz with them for them achieving what they set out to achieve, hitting targets.
Exactly. And like we've said numerous times when we've talked about coaching in general, like the fact of the matter is, it's their goal that they want to achieve. Like that's the whole point and philosophy of you being a coach. It's all very well like you having your dreams for them, but they come to you with dreams, and at the end of the day, that's what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you're guiding them to get there. And when you see something click, yes, it's good value for you and you take a certain appreciation away from it. But the fact of the matter is, all the credit goes to them all the time.
Absolutely. Because they've got to put in the work at the end of the day.
Exactly. Like a lot of my athletes, like 4 of them at the moment are on 60-mile plus a week, right? On average. And like, I can't force them to put the shoes on. Like, I can't say to them, come on, you need to get and do this. I can motivate them, but at the end of the day, I can't be in their house going, come on, mate, put your shoes on. We need to get this done. They have to physically do it themselves.
They do. It takes doing, especially when you are following a training plan that does have your tough days as well as working life and things like that. So
Yeah, definitely.
So a lot of these guys and girls are here to listen to some running advice today. All right, so let's start with a few mistakes you've made as a runner, Tom. Do's and don'ts. What have you learned from? What can the good people who are watching today do to avoid some of these mistakes?
So, mistake number 1 that I've made throughout my entire career, and even now still make that mistake, is when I get to a certain level of fitness where I'm very happy with the way sessions are going, I'll automatically jump my training up straight away because I'm in that very, very good shape. But I always think to myself, oh, I could get maybe 1 or 2% extra out of here. Where in reality, what would be much better for me would to be stick at that level of training, but get a lot more consistent and build a better base.
Yeah.
Because that's always been one of my main issues, is the fact that definitely from an athlete perspective, not as a coach though, as a coach, it's very strange because of the fact that I look back sometimes, because I've got all my training programs written down pretty much since I was 14 to now.
Wow.
And like, sometimes I look back and think, like, Jesus, man, if I was coaching this guy, I would have never let him get away with half of his stuff.
Yeah.
But what's quite strange is the fact that as a coach, I can tell somebody to do that and be like, why are you doing that? Why are you getting carried away on this mile? We needed it to be slower in order for you to recover.
Yeah, Whereas, I got that from you, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everyone has. I'm pretty sure everyone who is in my group, if there's anyone listening now who is, pretty sure they will have all had the bollocking of some kind, the pace bollocking, I call it, definitely. Whereas, like, I don't have that discipline to be able to say that to myself.
Yeah.
Which is strange. It's a real kind of phenomenon, but like, I'm working, like, even I've got a coach now for my own running.
All right.
Still, is the fact that because I'm not self-disciplined myself, like, I need that person to guide me. But what's quite interesting about our relationship is the fact that I'm still pretty much the predominant leader, because obviously I've got quite a high level of knowledge in the field. However, like the tennis ball against the wall analogy, it's more, my coach will ask me a lot of questions. So it'll be, I might say to them, I'm looking at doing this run today at X pace. However, they might go, why are you doing that? Yeah. And then that allows me then to switch and think, why am I actually doing this? And is it important? Which leads me on to my next point of making mistakes. Listen to your body as a runner,
so
right?
Mistake number 1, consistency.
Yeah, consistency is 100%.
Right.
Mistake number 2, listen to your body, right? Such a simple thing to do, and it sounds really kind of almost Greenpeace, futuristic kind of mumbo jumbo. But seriously, from day to day, listen to your body when you run. Like, if your plan says that you need to run a certain pace that day and you can't hit that pace because you feel too tired, why try and force yourself to do that? Because it's either going to end in you getting injured or feeling demotivated after the run because you can't run at that pace.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say is my second one. Listen to your body, because the amount of times through the years that I have not done that.
What about, right, when you're going out, you're training? Now, this is what I've found with the old listen to your body. That's why I heard bells, ding, ding, ding when you said that. I've actually made myself ill because I've, you're motivated, things are going well, as you say, and you wake up one morning, maybe you're tired from the training schedule you've done, or you've had not excess amount of sleep or whatever, and you've gone out and you've pushed yourself, and that's made me ill.
I understand that to a certain point, but at that point, it's the fact of, is the run worth it towards the point that we were talking about first, which is the fact of the consistency factor. So what you've got to think to yourself is, if you go out and force that run and get it done, yes, it might have been good to get it done now, but what are the ramifications the next 3 or 4 days after?
Well, you're not going to run at all, are you?
Exactly.
Like when I've got there and I haven't listened to my body, like I say, I haven't listened to it. I've pushed that run out, been badly, and you're out of the game, aren't you? And you're losing percentage of fitness.
Exactly. And even to relate it to my own running, like last year, I was in very, very good shape. Like, I got myself into what I'd probably say is nearly the best shape I've been probably since 2015. And like 2015 was when I ran the majority of my best times on the track. But I got myself into very good shape last year. But I became similar to what you mentioned there, with the fact of what was on the schedule that day I had to do.
Yeah.
Rather than the fact of actually, here he is, here we go.
Yeah.
Rather than
is he a little champ?
Okay.
Yeah. Go on.
When are we getting him ready for the future in Tom's training camp?
Oh, he's ready. He needs some running, Tom. He needs something. He likes his bikes, actually.
But yeah, that's the main point I'd take away, is the fact that I came away with the fact that I was so obsessed with my training that I didn't actually just listen to my body and be like, okay, I need a couple of extra days recovery after this huge session, rather than jumping into another session 2 or 3 days later. Instead, I should have maybe taken 6 or 7 days easy running, really allowed my body a chance to recover, and I might have had better consistency. But it's really hard when you get to a level, and I'm sure kind of people experience who are watching, is the fact that you get to a certain level of fitness, and like we mentioned before, you really want to keep going, when in reality, sometimes it's just better to level off for a little bit, get consistent, and then build again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit the peak, ride the wave a little bit, and then go again. Exactly. So we've got there. Consistency is key, and listen to your body. I've got a toddler climbing all over the place. If I'm looking a bit worried.
It's all right, mate. That's so good. Listen to your body is another one. And then the final mistake I've probably made the most is the fact that when I was growing up, I was very, very big-headed in terms of my knowledge of the sport. And that ruined my relationship with a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
With the fact that I wasn't willing to listen to them because I thought I knew better. When in reality, I didn't know much. I didn't know as much as they did, and I should have listened to them more, which is weird now, because I look at it as the fact that I should realistically expect the same out of me that I provide in my practice towards them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, mate, pal, I'm going to try and show him off.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Thank you. I've got no chance. This is why I'm doing the garage, Tom.
I understand, mate. It's all good.
You see, this is what I'm dealing with.
Nah, it's all right, mate.
So go on. Lesson number 3 was...
lesson number 3 is the fact that, I wish I'd listened to my... Yeah, I wish I'd listened more to my coaches and stopped being kind of big-headed when I maybe didn't know as much. And instead of actually providing constructive feedback to them, I often threw my toys out the pram a lot. when in reality, with them.
Yeah. You make a good point. So we'll move on a little bit, Tom. Thanks for that, by the way. 3 really good points there. Really good.
No worries.
Now, you've got 6 athletes, and they're all good standard. As you know, I was in that group. I know exactly who they are. A lot of people on this watching this now will already know who they are. Now, it's been a long lockdown. There's not been any races for a long time. And, even though it's obvious people who are athletes will just train anyway, regardless, how have they actually been affected, especially, the top end lads, how have they been affected with going through your, 60-mile runs a week, as you say? They've put the trainers on every day. They've got out the door without you making them. How have they dealt with lockdown life?
So to kind of sum us up, it's not been easy. It really has not been easy. And for anybody who says it has been easy in lockdown training, show me a liar, definitely, because it's like peaks and troughs. Some days you'll have days where you're really motivated and want to train. Other days will be, I really don't want to train through this. I can't do it. And the amount of amount of WhatsApp conversations I've had with my athletes being like, Tom, there's no races coming up for a while. Like, why don't we kind of back off a little bit or kind of have a couple of easy weeks? And what it is it's listening to the athlete, but overall explaining them to the fact that there is a long-term goal out there that we want them to achieve. And at the end of the day, it's reiterated. The worst thing was the fact that, and this is not having a go at like our governing body or like our government, because I don't want to get into a political chat, because I feel that's the way every podcast goes. Yeah. But it's the fact of like, why, when we first came out of lockdown the first time, did we suddenly promise athletes a load of races when the fact of the Olympics hadn't even been scheduled the next year to go ahead? And obviously the Olympics is probably one of the major events that is going to be classified to go ahead of a local road race. So why were we trying to like schedule these massive events, especially one like the London Marathon? Like, I understand to the point of keeping people motivated and getting people through. But the worst fact of when the London Marathon was cancelled the second time, the reattification of that, of the people, of the fact of them being suddenly dropped into another demotivating stage, it's almost like that dangle of carrot of almost promising the London Marathon wasn't worth it. But in answer to your question, in order to keep them motivated, it's simply the fact of stimulating racing as best we possibly can. Yeah. So with my athletes at the moment, it obviously varies depending on athlete to athlete, but round about every 8 to 12 weeks or so, we'll have a good solid race effort. Now, that'll be like a time trial over an allotted distance. Now, this is my own coaching philosophy, and this is what I've adapted and come from. And I feel free for any coaches who maybe do listen to this to disagree with me as much as they can. I never get my athletes to run time trials over exact distances, like as in 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon. And I have good logic behind that, is the fact that, say, for example, that you've done a time trial, say, for example, over a 10K, you've ran a minute PB, which is awesome, like massive congratulations. Wow, you've done really well. You come back to run your first race that's officially measured and ratified by UK or England Athletics. You finish your first race and you're in the best shape you've ever been. You finish and you run 2 minutes slower than your old PB. What kind of confidence is that going to give you, like knock-on wise, motivation wise?
Yeah.
Whereas if we run time trials over varied distances, like, for example, 2 mile time trials, 4 mile, 5 mile, 8 mile. Yes, obviously the athlete's giving 10 out of 10 in a gauge of fitness, but then we can't compare that to an actual race effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it makes total sense.
I've had a lot of coaches argue with me with the fact of why I do it, but every coach has their own mantra and philosophy of the way they do things. And I just personally believe, especially with the fact of when we had our first lockdown and we did time trials through that, then we kind of had that mini bit where there was a few races and then we kind of got back into lockdown. Yeah. I did notice a lot of athletes did go into races and didn't achieve PBs because in the lockdown they'd run time trials over the exact distance, and then they'd come to actually race and they hadn't got near the times. So like that's my argument for it. And I'm not saying that like my training's gospel and the most up to date in philosophy, but that's what I believe works.
It's your training, Tom, at the end of the day. And
yeah,
it's like it a lump it, innit? I like what you're saying. I understand, I do. I also understand for these lads, it's tough. Especially as younger lads who don't understand, years will come and come and come. It is tough for them. I can understand why they want to see how fast they are because they have put the work in. But I also
exactly. And if you say to an athlete, man, they're putting in a 12 to 16 week block of training, and then I say to them at the end, oh man, so instead of doing a half marathon like we wanted to in a race, we're only going to do an 8-mile time trial. There are a few of them that turn around and think, oh man, I'd love to do the half because
I could get my
I've trained for it. I'm ready.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I say to them, that's all very well, but that's only going to be a PB on Strava. It's not going to go to Power of 10 and it's not going to go to Run Britain and be classified.
Yeah.
So what's the logic? But yeah, it's a tough one. And going back to the whole lockdown thing and like, especially my athletes, like the monotony of training is tough. But when we went into our first lockdown where we knew we were locked down for roughly the best part of 3 to 4 months, a lot of my athletes had a complete month off training, didn't run because we knew we didn't have a race. So that was a perfect time to kind of have a good break.
Yeah.
And that's, you know me, I always go back in full circles the way I talk and go back to an old point we talked about before. But a classic one is the fact that don't be afraid of having time off running.
Yeah.
Like that's another thing I'd say as well, that the fact that a lot of people I see, especially on the fact of like Strava, you got your Garmin's and you see a lot of like Power of 10 and Run Britain accounts. People race constantly all year.
Yeah.
And like, where's the point where you have a break for like 2 or 3 weeks, almost forget about running and the monotony of training.
Yeah. And
then you go spend some time with the family or go and enjoy actual life, go and sink 12 to 16 pints with the lads. Like, because at the end of the day, you need that outlet.
Yeah. No, I understand that. For me personally, that usually falls after a big triathlon like Ironman, something like that. I will just
definitely
drop off anyway. It's out of sickness. But
yeah,
I just want to say before we carry on, Tom, if anyone's got any questions for Tom or myself, just drop them in now because we're going to wrap it up before long. So get them questions in now, and I can fire them over to Tom. I can see them down here in front of me. So get them in now, and I'll fire them over to him. Cheers. So sorry, Tom.
No, that's no worries. Honestly, like anyone wants to ask me a question, feel free. Like I'm a coach. I'm not afraid to share stuff. Yeah. Like I made the point of when I was a coach and an educator of the fact that I was never going to hide anything. Yeah. If anyone wants to ask anything about my athletes, the way they train, if anyone wants sample schedules sent out to them for ideas, let me know. More than happy to share anything within my practice. Like I've got nothing to hide.
Cool. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions that was on the post that I put out when I said we was going to do this talk.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I've got one from Darren Haney, who's a local runner. I'll tell you a little bit about him before I drop you his question, because obviously you'll need to know. So he's a local runner. At the minute, he's on fire. He's running a lot of miles. He's built it up as well over time, Tom. And just last week, for example, he built it up to 70 miles. So
heavy.
It's good. He's done really well. He wants to improve his stride, and how does he get to the next level? I know he's looking at doing long distance events. He's wanting to start doing ultras, things like that. So how does he take his running to the next level? How does he improve his running stride?
Okay, so I think we have to first break this down for Darren into 2 separate points. So I think number one, what we have to alliterate more on is the fact that, similar to my own self in my career as an athlete, he's building up well, which is great, and that's awesome. But there is a point, like we mentioned before, where instead of building up all the time, what might be better for him at this point is to maybe plateau for a couple of weeks, get some sort of consistency of training there, and then build up his training again, just so I like to use the house analogy quite a lot with this.
Yeah.
So if he keeps building, he's going to create himself as his body as quite like an unstable house.
Yeah.
So his ground floor, his middle floor, and his main roof will be quite shaky because he hasn't put in the work at the foundation level in order to kind of make him strong.
Yeah.
So if I was him, I'd be looking at building that foundation base now and almost ticking along at a good line.
Yeah.
And then once he's kind of got a good kind of, what I'd say, a good kind of 4 to 6 weeks of consistent training in at a certain level, for example, 50 to 60 mile a week, then he's got that optimum to increase it slightly and increase his level. And then he knows for a fact he's got that base put in and he hasn't just increased it straight up.
Yeah, he hasn't just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, exactly. And if, like, for anybody obviously who is listening, go and have a look at people's Strava accounts and look at the graphs. The graphs is the key. The best athletes who you'll notice have graphs that will go up, up, a little bit along, up, up, a little bit along. The athletes who are quite insistent will have a graphs that look like the mountains in Cumbria. They'll be up, down, up, down.
That's like one of my graphs, Tom.
No, it's all right. Mine's the same, lads. Like, but we're coaches, so it's fine. As long as we can implement it, we don't have to bring it back.
I've got a question coming from.
Sorry, Ben. I'm just going to go on to his second point, which is what he was saying about his, in terms of how he can increase his stride length and stuff and work on that. The simple thing, he's obviously running a lot, which is great, but he needs to take care of his second half, which is his conditioning side.
Mm.
So I'm obviously not sure in type of stuff he's doing gym work.
Nothing.
But if he needs to start slowly introducing some gym work in there in order to increase his mobility and his running economy. But then further on from that, and if he wants to message me on Facebook after, feel free. I can send him some videos with drills that he should incorporate after easy and steady runs. Now, what the drills will do is help with the like more economy side and help with his range of mobility.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of athletes forget, is the fact that they go for these runs. And I'll even say myself, they'll go for an easy run. And then the first thing they'll do is when they come back on, they'll just sit and watch telly for about an hour. When in reality, like the good runners will spend 20, 30 minutes after the run doing some sort of conditional work, whether that be in drills, foam rolling, icing, just some sort of foam and recovery.
Yeah, I have drilled it into him as well about strength work, things like that to, you know, be like, what's the word? Fixing it before the problem's there, you know.
Exactly.
Proactive instead of reactive as well.
Exactly.
We have had that conversation. So we've had a question come in from Ben Harper, and he said, what pace should I be doing my easy runs? His current half, his PB is 1:30, and he's doing easy runs at about 8:30 to 9 minute pace. Is that about right?
Okay. I don't work in Ks, so what I'll do is I'll let him.
No, that's mile an hour.
That is miles, so that's fine. That's good. So to me, that sounds like absolutely bang on. So to kind of alliterate into what my own training group is, and this is going off on a bit of a tangent, but I'll pull it round. So my athletes work to a point of what's called the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
So when they do a week of mileage, 80% of their mileage will be easy running, 20% of their mileage will be high intensity work, either tempo, anaerobic or aerobic work.
Mm.
Now, when it comes to doing their easy runs, for example, we'll take Mark Emerson for the example for this, okay? Mark Emerson's PB for the half marathon is 5:28 or 5:30 a mile, right? Now, when he does his easy runs, and that's him like when he's recovering in between runs or he's just running for aerobic build just to kind of get out, his running will be about 7:10 to 7:30. Now, that's 2 minutes slower than his actual PB. And this relates very well across the board to the elite level. So, for example, we take glorious like Mo Farah, right? Mo's PB for the marathon is 4:45 to 4:50 per mile. All right. He runs 6 minute mile into 6:30s for his easy runs. So that's 2 minutes slower. Take the great one, Elliot Kipchoge, 4:36 a mile if we count the sub 2 hour run, which I do. I count it. I think in order, even though it was the shoes that majority did it, like you got to get somebody there, haven't you?
Was it an official race?
No, but
not counted, Tom. Not counted. No. You said
No.
it yourself earlier, mate. It was a time trial gone wrong, pal.
Okay. Okay. We'll count his 2:01 at Berlin then. So from there, like that's 4:38 a mile. He does all of his runs at around about 6 minutes to 6:30 for his easy runs, according to Sweat Elite, the kind of website that kind of has gone over to Kenya. They've spent a bit of time with them. Once again, 2 minutes slower. So for his PB, in terms to Ben's PB, he'd ran 1 hour 30. So that works out as it's like 6:50 a mile, I think. Add 2 minutes on. Anywhere between, I'd be looking for him anywhere between 8:30 and 8:50 for his easy runs. His steady runs, maybe about 7:50 to 8 minute miling.
Yeah.
Like he's in that wheelhouse. Like as long as he keeps the consistency of training there, and he's worked. The key is as well that he's doing 1 to 2 hard sessions a week. He'll build. Like there's natural progression. He'll progress definitely, especially with the fact of the easy runs. Yeah.
All right, I've got one more question for you, pal. The boy's been in and nicked my phone, so I can't see anybody else's.
Nah, no stress.
So, last one, Ella, she's a lovely lass. She wants to know, how can she keep building her running and her pace without having too much impact on her hips and knees?
Oh, okay. So, do you like know of her kind of running? Have you spent a bit of time with her?
Not really. She does do my exercise classes, but every now and again she'll kick off running. I'm not sure. It's not very consistent kind of thing.
Okay, so if we look at like the key is just the word that we talked about before is the fact of like consistency. So it's the fact that even though you might have like these peaks and troughs of running where you kind of think to yourself, oh, I'm going to go for a run tonight and then I'm going to jump in Ben's class and then I'm going to have 2 days off and then I'm going to get back into running again. Yeah. That's not giving you time for your body to kind of condition to the natural rhythm of running and getting out every day. Because even now, speaking from myself, right, I went for my first, like, obviously I come from a long line of running years. So I've done basically the best part of 16 years of competitive running up to now. Even the fact of I've had COVID in the last couple of weeks, I've had 4 weeks off, completely off running, haven't trained. I went for my first run yesterday and today I'm in absolute agony, like calves, hips, everywhere's hurting. But I know for a fact that if I even get out for a dramatically slower run, it's going to make me feel better for the next 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So the key is for her now is the fact of getting in that rhythm running and routine of running. Yeah. So for example, if she's maybe running a bit erratically, so she might be running 1 day, 2 day, then having a week off and then going again. Or even if she's doing 3 days in a row, a couple of days and then 3 days again. What might be better for her is to try a routine over 3 weeks. Okay, so a 3-week prolonged training period. Try starting off with 2 days of running on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. Then next week, 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. And then she's built that foundation there, similar to what we were talking about the house before. Yeah, that's my advice to her. And then the major thing, like I say to all my athletes, is she needs to enjoy it. Yeah. Like, even though regardless of the kind of the aches and the pain side of coming from it, like at the end of the day, when you are running, you are going to have some sort of irritation there. Yeah. Like anybody who says when they're going out for the run, every run feels perfect is a liar. Like you are going to have days where you are going to have little niggles and sores, but it's just managing those niggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect, Tom. Well, I think that about wraps it up, mate.
No worries.
Unless you want to stick in.
No, like I'm honestly all good. Like I've said to you before, it's an absolute pleasure for you to invite me on. Like I feel very privileged, and for any of those people who haven't joined Ben's practice yet, like you are a step behind. Like realistically, I don't vouch for many coaches. Like I've got my like little bubble, and there's a lot of people who I trust within the community, but Ben's one who, yes, hasn't come from a running background, but he understands the process. Like the key fundamentals are there. So, for example, anybody who kind of is looking for running coaches, I'm sadly full at the moment. But if you go to Ben, like Ben knows his stuff. And trust me, coming from an England athletics coach and a master in sports coaching, it was me too at my own home, Ben, like I said I would, right? Ben knows his stuff. So I'd fully recommend him to anybody, like, especially if you kind of want to improve. And then finally, if anybody does have any questions that they're not comfortable in sharing on the chat to people, just message me. Like, I might take a couple of days to respond, but I'm more than happy to help anybody out who's wondering about athletics.
And that's true words. You really are, Tom, and appreciate all your time, everything you've given. You know, in my alpha group the other day, you give the lads a lot of information. We really appreciate that. Today, you've come on here live with me, give a lot out, and that's what I say. Thank you from everyone, really, Tom, because you know you're a knowledgeable bloke. You've come and poured your heart out. So thank you very much, mate, and good luck going forward. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Take care, mate. Catch you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you later.